So I've come here again. I just find it, you close the door and it's like a world of silence, a place where you can think, get away from the usual environment. So in my last video, I mentioned three things in particular. Things that are going to be of absolutely no interest to the vast majority of the population. Not going to be seen as real in any way, or relevant, or effective. I mentioned the field. I mentioned living thought. And I mentioned nominal thought. I was using, for the latter two, I was referencing Rudolf Steiner. So, in brief, the difference between nominal thought and living thought is that in nominal thought, all you're doing is using words. There's no sort of emotional involvement in them. They're just, in a sense, they are simply empty words. And I'm sure we're all fully aware of the nature of empty words. The person or machine or whatever it is in no way invested in them. Living thought's a lot harder. And I suspect there are many degrees to which thought lives. And I certainly don't claim to understand it fully, certainly not. But if we are able, through our own experience especially, to accept the field, or the force, or the spiritual worlds, dimensions, however you want to describe them, then with living thought, we are essentially using the matter of those worlds. So when we speak of something, we speak of integrity, say. It's a word that can easily be thrown around without understanding. So how do we start to understand it? To use it nominally, i.e. simply to throw the word out there, well, it'll mean different things to different people, and it'll just sink into the general blah blah. So, I suppose the first stage is to actually ponder what it means and to ponder the implications and to feel a connection with it. Once again, I'm always using labels in the sense of, if you don't like the labels I'm using, then use your own. But basically forming a soul connection with things, that the more you understand and try to live into integrity, the more living that particular thought becomes for you. It's forming a connection with something real and something powerful. Something which It exists in and of itself. If this world ceased, if it just totally disappeared, tomorrow, today, next second, integrity as a principle would still exist. On the physical plane, you might say it's rather like gravity. I mean, it's always there. We can't quite explain where gravity comes from or what it is, but it's always there. Whereas I think there is a principle behind everything, but it becomes more and more divided as you come down the layers. So I was just about to say, well, then there is a car, and of course the car would cease to exist in that manifestation, but the principle, perhaps the principle of transport, you go up the levels. But anyway, that's a little bit by the by. So the point is that something like integrity has an existence which is immutable. It is from this saying, be true to yourself and you can be false to no man. And we needn't even have the word man in there. It's not really relevant. In the absolute nature of integrity, it is simply being true to yourself. So, I mentioned the soul connection. Soul can mean perhaps different things to different people. That really isn't relevant, but the point is, it's how you feel about yourself. Are you yourself, or are you the tool of another? Once again, I mention coming here in a way to get away from my normal environment. This is unprepared. I'm just talking off the cuff. I had a very rough idea of what I would talk about when I got here, but this is totally unscripted. So if I have to stop and think, forgive me. So, if we form a relationship with integrity, by that I mean with the abstract principle itself, we're forming a living connection. And of course this will generally not be perfect. You could even say that it is the point of life that we become ourselves. So there's this inscription behind me which I made quite a lot of concerning integrity and benevolence. So, now comes to mind the characteristics of any God worthy of the name. And that is omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence, and omnibenevolence. It's not so self-evident, that one. Though I suppose if the God is everywhere, with all power, with all knowledge, it would be a strange God that wasn't benevolent to itself. And of course we have the problem of evil in there. And here we are in this world, and we deal with the consequences of evil. So the phrase which was attributed to Christ, resist not evil, what does that mean? Does that mean we just ignore it? We let it have its way, we let it do whatever it wants to do? I think it's something more subtle than that. I think that basically we know about evil, and if it comes our way in the physical world, then we most probably should fight it. But the real solution is to ally ourselves with something higher. And one of those higher things is integrity. There are others, there are virtues, but I don't particularly want to digress into that at this point. On the other hand, we're told to turn the other cheek. That's a very hard saying, I think. But then perhaps it's about not being provoked to act in an evil way. And maybe that's very much happening at the moment. I mean, bringing this back down to earth, the present government seems to be doing everything it can to annoy the people, to provoke a reaction. And the reaction, if violent, gives them the justification to clamp down on people even harder. This is by no means a new thing. I think the observant will have noticed that there is a tendency in those who would control us to create a problem or to pick on a problem and to inflate it. And then, having convinced a lot of people there is a problem, they then bring in measures which increase the control they have over us. I think if you can't see that, and you can't see that by now, there's little that can be done to persuade you. I don't mean to be rude, but you've got to think for yourself. You've got to have a memory to pick up patterns, that's the point. As you grow older, you see the same things happening again and again, the same results. So, basically, if we are divided, we will fail to see the real problem. So yes, sometimes you turn the other cheek, or you use a higher principle. You might say a higher principle than rioting is peaceful demonstration. You might wonder sometimes if they're not actually trying to provoke a riot. There certainly are people who seem to attach themselves to demonstrations to turn them into riots. The cause of that demonstration may be perfectly legitimate, may be perfectly humane. So it's complicated. We mustn't allow ourselves to be played, that's the point. So how we avoid being played is by, instead of reacting, we use critical thought. We start to look in to the meaning of words, we look into the underlying consequences. And in doing so, or in doing so, in a sense, we are attempting to accord with truth and trying to accord with the true situation. Once again, we may inevitably miss the mark by some degree. We are showing integrity. So, an example given of, we come to the question slightly of free will. Do we have free will? Or are all our choices simply dictated by, let's put modern words on it and call it programming? Well, obviously, to a very large extent, they are. We are somewhat like a stone that has been thrown and somehow comes to think for itself that it has a choice. Well, it doesn't really have a choice in the destination. It's flying through the air, it's going where the laws of gravity put it. Well, laws of physics. But okay, let us suppose that we only imagine that we have some freedom. We can use that imagination to go for integrity, say, or something else. We do actually, whether we ultimately have a choice or not, I mean, it's unknowable. But if you believe you have a choice, and you can choose either evil, or you can choose integrity, or some other virtue, then you live with the consequences, don't you? So what is evil? I mean, many of us will have a pretty good idea of just what that involves. It's so commonplace. Perhaps a lot of evil hides behind other things, and we're starting to see that now. I think one of the problems at the moment is that rather than look to ourselves, we're looking to others. We're looking to political parties. We're looking to the very people who at the moment are clearly engaged in evil. And we're expecting them to rescue us. Well, it's a ridiculous concept. The whole point of evil is to dominate, to get its own way, to use any and all means to achieve its end. And included in those means are any kind of deception, any kind of give a little, well, sprat to catch a mackerel, so okay, things appear to get better, they appear to do this and that and the other. But underneath it all, the agenda rolls on. The year 2030 has been mentioned a lot. I mean, it's almost like a religious observation. Why precisely that date? I don't know. But why do they seem to want everything done by 2030? I think a lot of it is probably connected with technology, with artificial intelligence. One might even argue that the chaos in politics and the apparent impotence of politicians to do anything, and their dishonesty in every aspect, is to cause us to acquiesce to AI. The argument will be that it will deal only with the facts, it will be like justice, it will be blind. Why do we need that? Are we just saying, well, humanity is basically crap and that's it. We can't be trusted to look after ourselves. So we must be like children and be looked after. I mean, in a sense, that's what's happening anyway. It's just we've discovered the parents are pretty lousy. It's not even the institutions or the principles behind them which are bad. I mean, as I understand it, Nigel Farage recently opined on the subject of sending criminals to places like El Salvador, and summary justice and all this kind of thing. Well, the idea of the justice system, or at least as I understand it, sometimes you may sort of look at the lengths to which a lawyer is going to go to get somebody off. But the point is, the ideal behind that is that after all the wriggling and everything, after every argument has been tried, if that person is found guilty, it's a safe conviction. If we introduce a sort of summary justice, then that process goes out the window. It's merely expedient. So it's the way the justice system has been infiltrated that is the issue. It is the question of integrity. And of course, all the institutions rely on people like you and me to implement them. So back to AI. People are already addicted to their phones. I spend far too much time on the internet. I'd be far better off going for a walk or reading. I mean, I do quite a bit outside, but I'm just aware that nevertheless, and yet, perhaps many people are spending practically their entire waking lives on some kind of device. This is going to get worse. It can already be put in your spectacles. I dare say it could be put in contact lenses. Ultimately, it's going to go inside your head. Or not even that. I mean, the point is, you're going to become so connected to it that you're going to lose yourself. It's as simple as that. So how catastrophic is that? Okay, you apparently on the surface become almost superhuman. But what have you become? You've become part of a machine. We've all seen films like The Matrix. You've become part of a fragment of the universe. All you can see is what you are shown, or what's in the program. We might even wonder if that's where we are now. Our range of physical vision and senses are ridiculously limited. We see a certain spectrum of light. Probably most animals have a better sense of hearing and smell than we do. So if we go by what we can see, we're seeing a fragment of all that is. And then we're making up our minds on that. So this comes back. So how do we get out of that? Or how do we expand our horizon? Well, if you're always passive and you're always reacting, you're taking in all this information, you're believing it or disbelieving it. In a way, it doesn't matter whether you believe or disbelieve. The point is you give it mind. But what we can do, or hopefully what most of us can do, I don't know. I don't know whether we have free will or not. We're told we do. But the point is that we reach for something higher. And I think the highest quality that I can imagine is to be what we truly are. If we give that away, what do we have? So back to omniscience, omnipotence. What was the other one? Omnipotence, omniscience, omnipresence, and omnibenevolence. So does this not sound a little bit like integrity? Sort of rolled into one in a sense. or at least integrity forms a part of that. Maybe the omnipresence aspect of it. Thinking on my feet here a little bit. So I think that's what I really want to say. Thinking, I'm not quite sure exactly what I have said. I've said rather a lot. So I rather hope that the flavour of it seeps through. And the point is that, okay, what is the effect of us being, or forming a relationship with integrity? We become integrity in this physical world. So when everyone else is perhaps reacting, doing stupid things, perhaps we have an influence. It may, I think it is said that basically good actions are more powerful than evil, because basically you are dealing with something higher up the food chain. The higher you go, the more powerful things become. So that's food for thought. So we come back to nominal thought and living thinking. Well, nominal thought, the words are just words, it's just blah blah. It's like the Indians used to say, so-and-so's words have no iron. Doesn't really mean them. They don't mean anything. I know that's in the films, but the point is that living thinking has content. It has the weight of the principles which first shaped this world, not the chaos into which it seems to be descending.